Hello, this is Joseph Gillette Sr. with Global Intel Hub, and this is Intelligence Storm. It's a podcast where we talk about current events in markets and kind of deep intelligence of what's going on planet Earth, on the macro picture for the whole planet, like the big picture of trends and current events and how it all ties, where we can invest, how we can live our lives better, and so on and so forth. And the topic I'm going to discuss today is kind of a topic about venture capital, but I've got a bunch of different channels on YouTube, and the reason is YouTube is very restrictive about what you can and cannot talk about. There's a lot of censorship, even though it's not so obvious, because like on X, the censorship has kind of, it's more free. I mean, it's not like it was during COVID, but anyway, there's a lot of censorship on certain topics. So if you start talking about certain things, you're just going to get, it's not so obvious like it used to be. Like it used to be they would just delete your channel. What they do now is they shadow ban you, or what they will do is they will, I'm not sure what it's called, but you'll have a lot more views and a lot more followers than they're really displaying, and they will not distribute that content in the search. And as far as Global Intel Hub, we've been blacklisted, banned, hacked, you name it. Who are you? I know who I am, but who are you is the question, hacking me. So let's dive into this. Last couple of weeks have been kind of big news weeks in politics, geopolitics, and exopolitics, which is a big topic that I like to discuss because, so we've identified that we've been interacting with non-human intelligences for a long time. At least the military has. Freemasons have for probably a very long time, and some humans, maybe not the whole population, but some groups of humans have been interacting with non-humans for a long time. Well, we shouldn't make any assumptions, but I imagine that they're more intelligent than we are, they're more advanced, and so their politics, or their exopolitics, is probably far more complicated than human politics, which I've become, any macro analyst in Wall Street can get pretty good if you do it long enough. It's not so complicated. It's a closed system. You've got different moving parts, and my background is FX. So in FX, you look at two things. You look at Fed policy and the White House, and the White House can do two or three things. They can control fiscal policy, and with their actions, they can create inflation, like Biden did with the commodity sanctions on commodity countries, and other things. But they can also do things that actually impact, like war, for example, is going to impact the U.S. dollar. So, like I remember during the Iraq War, it was actually inversely correlated with certain news events. And I'm sure that there's some connection between military operations and the Fed operations department. They've got to, if anything, manage liquidity. After 9/11, markets were closed, but FX markets weren't. And I wasn't trading FX when that happened. That's kind of the catalyst how I got into FX. But anyway, it's all connected. But when you look at political markets and geopolitics and things like war and the price of oil and the politics between countries, it's not difficult. It's not such a complex field in a way. About, like, Israel has a certain point of view compared to other Arab states, and the feud between the Muslims and the Jews goes back for thousands of years. The Muslims, Jews, and Christians have been fighting wars with each other in different sides and different circumstances since they existed like religions. So politics is, what I want to say is, if you take the metaphor of exopolitics, your mind will just explode, because imagine like our civilization existed for millions of years. How do you even put that into context? America is one of the oldest countries in the world. That's a fact. One of, not the oldest, but one of. Most of the countries recently created were kind of designer countries, like after World War II. It's a whole other story. But even being a 300-year-old or almost 300-year-old country, we can't imagine what it's like to be 3 million years as a civilization. So when we're talking about exopolitics, it's a really, it just baffles the mind. The only thing that comes close is quantum physics, and I think quantum physics is a good metaphor to unite humans into one voice, because quantum physics is not so controversial. Actually, there's a lot of drama in quantum physics, and if you want to really check into that, the author Michio Kaku is highly recommended, because he not only gives you his research, but also the history of other quantum physicists and how they've come to their conclusions and the stories of how things happened. And it can be dramatic at times, but it's fun overall. And so I think quantum mechanics and quantum physics is really the only even subject that's close to this, unless you're talking about some really deep mathematics like infinity, and you get into all that. So let's first break down what's happened in the last couple of weeks that was big news. So we're taking the talking points from articles we wrote on our site. So the first thing that happened is, well, Elon, I mean, these two things happened kind of one and then the other, and so that's what started this iteration of thinking. So Dr. Michael Salla is probably the foremost authority in my view, like a Wall Street macro analyst. We can argue about like who's better, a UFO researcher, but for me, like in Wall Street, you have a very strict criteria of doing forensic research, much like the FBI or the CIA would do. In fact, the CIA is like tied to Wall Street like a hat and a bald head. Half the CIA directors were either securities attorneys or investment bankers. I mean, the Dulles brothers were basically investment bankers, or whatever you want to call them. They were lawyers, but they were opportunists, and they were going to other countries, and so I really appreciate Dr. Michael Salla because of his objective, independent analysis and forensic research, and he's always corroborating his sources. He's very skeptical. He has a very balanced approach, and at the same time, he has a spiritual background, and I don't like to really explore that because that's not my field of expertise. But if you talk to quantum physicists, all of them are deeply spiritual, not religious. There's a big difference. They're not dogmatic, but they're spiritual. Einstein wrote a lot about God and his connection to God, and because what happens when you get up to the top of the intellectual pyramid, there's no answers to those questions, like about the origins of the universe. Where did the universe come from? Well, I can tell you where it didn't come from. It didn't come from primordial soup. You can take primordial soup, which is the leading theory, that's what they teach in schools, shot electricity through it, lightning, for trillions of years. You're never going to get amoebas. I mean, randomly. That's just total nonsense. So someone is creating a lesson plan for us to learn in school. I don't know who it is. I don't know a lot of things. But I can tell you that what we're being told is false. I don't know who's behind 9/11. I don't know a lot of things, but I can tell you that the 9/11 Commission report, just like the Warren Commission report, is nonsense. It's total garbage. The magic bullet couldn't fly through JFK 20 times or whatever. So we know what didn't happen. So anyway, if you really are new into exopolitics, Dr. Michael Salla is really he's kind of like my filter, because you always have to have sources. If you're, let's say you work for the CIA or you're a Wall Street analyst, if you're an analyst of any kind, or just an information junkie, you want to have solid sources, just like a journalist. You have sources, and you got to trust your sources. You got to know your sources. You got to never stick to your source. If they could go bad, nothing is forever. Someone can get to them. They can flip. They can get remote mind controlled. They can just, people change. Something happens to people, and and that's what I like about Dr. Salla. So anyway, he interviewed this witness, Dr. Andrea Martin, and this Dr. Martin claims that she has a contact in the Galactic Federation of Worlds that claims that the Galactic Federation made a deal with the Monopolies and made a deal with the deep state. And he differentiates between, so the deep underground state, which is deep in the underground bunkers, that's doing lots of bad things like genetic experiments on human patients and stuff with kids, human trafficking, all that stuff. those guys have been mostly eradicated. And what we're talking about with the deal is the Galactic Federation making a deal with the big pharma, Wall Street, the big oil, the Mr. Global is what Catherine Austin Fitts calls it. The best explanation of that is the Committee of 300 by Dr. John Coleman, who was CIA MI6, who lived through this. It wasn't like a book he authored out of, wasn't like the Cecil Rhodes material, the Clinton stuff, the Tragedy and Hope. It wasn't like that. It's just real experiences about these people, and the Committee of 300 has controlled the world for a really long time. They control 99% of the world's resources. It's like, George Soros is like a drop in the bucket compared to these guys. Like, they just own, like, the Commonwealth countries are owned by the Queen. I lived in New Zealand. You don't buy property in New Zealand, you lease it from the Crown for 99 years, and then you renew your lease indefinitely. So you can't actually own property. So basically what they're saying is the Galactic Federation of Worlds made a deal with these big monopolies, and it's very controversial. So the whole, it created this internet firestorm, and everyone's saying that that's not real and that's not true, and the white hats are in control, and there's a disclosure plan. And what I've found in the truth that I found, the truth frequency that resonates with me, is that unless you have a fake, which is just a total fake liar, which exists, I think that both narratives can be true at the same time. Because, now first of all, let me just say this. I was always suspicious of disclosure, as we all understand in the community, disclosure being we're going to experience kind of an event, and there's going to be aliens, something like in Mars Attacks, they come from the sky or something like that, or there's a press release, or they're sitting next to Trump, and then they start like giving us technology, like the med beds are rolling out. I've always been skeptical of that, because what we're really talking about in that case is not, it's a disclosure of information, but disclosure's already happened. If you want to spend the time listening to Dr. Sala, and there's thousands of other people, thousands of books. I have a stack of UFO books that I've got probably 50 books that I've bought that are recommendations and references from different researchers that I haven't read yet because there's no time. I probably read, hundreds of books on the topic, and there's so much material. So the whole thing about disclosure is just about information. I think we're living through disclosure. This is what disclosure looks like. Like, it's not going to be a TV announcement, because all the vested interests are still here. So even though the white hats have a disclosure plan, that's fine. But the people that own the shareholders in the drug companies, they still want to sell drugs. They still want to sell pharmaceuticals. The oil guys still want to sell oil. So unless you eliminate all those guys, but like some have said, if you just eliminated the whole Committee of 300, the upper class, the elites, you would have huge disruption of society, because we need a transition period. So my question has always been what that transition is going to look like, because what we're talking about is a transfer of wealth or class warfare, and I can't see the elites, the rich people, just handing over trillions of dollars to the masses. I just can't imagine it. Because I see it in my job, and I know how they think, and I don't think, they say like everything is black and white. I don't think that this is about good and evil. This is about a complex system called society. Okay? So when I heard the Galactic Federation of Worlds made a deal with the big monopolies, number one, I don't see it as a betrayal. The guy who told this information to Dr. Andrea Martin, he said, I was crying, I was upset, and I resonate with him, because we all want to sort of eliminate this slavery system, but there's another way to go about this, I think, which is actually the topic of my article. But I was not surprised, and I don't think it's a betrayal. They just, a federation can deal with another federation. In other words, they don't have a framework to deal with the masses. Now, there's this other thing, the Confederation, which is more of a spiritual group, who are dealing with individuals, I think that is more promising as far as disclosure of technology and bringing things out. But to see a just like transfer of wealth, like there's going to be a new financial system, like that all this, I always have felt that that's a conspiracy theory, and it's healthy. I'm not saying that, I mean, that would be good if it happened, like a quantum financial system, and I'm working on a system that would use algorithms to determine value, and that it would self-optimize itself. And I'm sure there's millions or thousands of other people working on something like that. I would love to see something like that implemented, but like Bitcoin is definitely not the solution, nor is XRP or all of this other stuff. So there's a lot of noise. And how do you separate the noise from the signal in this case? Because this is a big deal. This is a huge narrative. Well, let's use Dr. Sala's method and look at what's really going on in the world. Since this announcement, that was about 1 week before the Elon and Trump feud. And let me just play this one video. This is where Elon has a black eye, and he's either been drugged or, I mean, he's not like sleepy, let's put it that way. He's someone punched him in the face and drugged him. Okay? After that happened, he quit Dodge and got in an argument with Trump. So what's going on? Then after that, what happened? We have a war in the Middle East. They're trying to bait Trump into the war. Benjamin Netanyahu is a deep state guy. I mean, he is the dark deep state, the evil, conniving guy that wants to create war. And what is he saying? Like every dictator, the end justifies the means. I'm sure the Israeli people don't support what he's doing. And there's been protests against him. He almost lost. I mean, he hangs on by a thin thread. The point is, there are no coincidences. I mean, these things are not, it's not like he decided like an individual. He's part of a greater network. And they're trying to bait Trump into the war. As soon as Trump steps in that trap, there's no more MAGA. There's no more patriot movement. It's going back 25 years. Like Schroeder said, InfoWars. It's like George Bush 2.0. I mean, a lot of people were attracted to MAGA, not because they were Republicans, because they were anti-war, they're anti-deep state. And so far, Trump's done all those things, and he's done a lot of things, and it's been great. But war is a big deal. I mean, this is a decisive thing. He steps in that mousetrap, there's no turning back. Because you can't say, oh, well, we had to. Because that's what everyone else said. There's no need. I mean, let Israel and Iran just fight it out. Just protect ourselves. It's not going to come to the United States. You know, we can defend ourselves. So it seems like something happened. So these people who are saying, oh, this is all just BS information. But where's the evidence of the white hat disclosure, medbed kind of rollout? There's kind of two things that could be happening. I mean, it's a lot of thousands of different variants, but there's kind of either the good guys are in control or a deal was struck and we're kind of going backward. And it does feel like we're going backward. I felt that I'm a little bit sensitive, not quite as much as some other people, and I'm certainly not, I don't sell courses on that. I'm a trader and a Wall Street guy. But I felt like around that same time that it was just a lot of negative energy just being dumped physically with just you can feel it with the storms, with the weather, physically with the stuff. And I have a positive energy bubble. So I did the Monroe Institute, and I recommend that for anyone who wants to learn about their higher self. But you can create an energy bubble around you. It's like a deflective shield that you can put around you, and all this negativity just bounces off. So I see all this as a good thing, and I'll explain why. The solution is not that the elites are going to just give us free money. That's a welfare state. The solution is we have to have a mathematically fair balanced system. So imagine for a minute that we had a limit, if you want to do business, on the amount of money you can have. It's not a tax. It's not a tax. Taxation is stupid. But you're limited. Let's say it's like this. Like you make $1 million, you keep 100%. So you get $1 million. I mean, is that enough? Really? Do you need 100 million so you can buy like 500 Patek Philippe watches? No, you don't. So 10 million, you get 90%. So at the end of this, if you have a 99% kind of a logarithmic type of system, you're still going to get 10, 11, 12, 13 million bucks. Is that enough? But the system's going to get $1 billion. And with that $1 billion, you can plant trees, you can build houses that people can live in, you can grow food that people can eat, and you're going to eat some of that food too, by the way. So you've got your 13 million, so you can buy the Lux life. So with that 13 million, do whatever you want. Buy a helicopter, buy an island. Point is, you're going to take the rest and you're going to invest it. It's not going to be taxed. The government should not be involved in this process. Here's the whole point. There's one industry that does this kind of paradigm shift really well. It's venture capital. The venture capital industry is capable of managing paradigm shift. And a lot of these VCs, I'm not going to say that they don't live fancy lives, but I just want to mention the whole point about the difference between the Elon Musk model and the other people's models. Elon is not a big spender. I mean, he has a plane and stuff like that, but he doesn't have yachts and lavish parties and expensive watches, and he wears t-shirts. He doesn't like engage in this egregious luxe culture. He just doesn't do it. So I'm not saying he's a hero personally. I'm saying that's the model that he takes the money that he makes, billions of dollars. What did he do? He created SpaceX. So he made the capital work to create value, and SpaceX has thousands of employees. So when these billionaires buy these expensive things, they're destroying capital. So the problem is two things: greed and hoarding. Venture capital does a very good job of taking the money, and the people who make the money, what do with most of it, or almost all their spare cash? They invest it in more startups, and they become more rich. And it's like a game for them. And they do, I mean, I'm not saying that they don't, conspicuous consumption, Thurston Veblen. It's conspicuous consumption, but most of their money they reinvest, and they just keep reinvesting because they don't want to miss out on the next Airbnb. And so that incentivizes them to keep reinvesting. So what you see happening is every year, thousands of new companies are starting. And so I think venture capital is a model that we could use for shifting the economy into a fair system. And like, as far as my outline here, intelligentism, I'm calling it, it's basically, you can call it whatever you want. It's mathematical algorithms to determine the value of money. And I developed algorithms for 20 years. I was a currency trader, and we developed algorithms obviously to profit. And it's not easy because the market is moving, and how do you know? You're programming a rule-based system to react to the market. So it's not easy. But here you have a system that you can simulate and test, and you just want to create value. And I mean, the first thing the thing might say is you should invest the money instead of buying this 500 luxury watches. You can have one luxury watch, but not 500. So I think, and here's the real amazing thing. We don't have to force this on anyone. All it takes is one person, me for example, or thousands of other people, to do it. In other words, we don't have to lobby Congress. We don't have to convince other people to do it. We don't have to have protests and change the Constitution. Anybody can do this. And mathematically, I guarantee it'll work. Because look at this. With one deal, instead of hoarding capital and building these $50 million houses, which some of them these rich people don't even ever see because you have so many of them, and then they'll burn down in a fire and you'll just get an insurance check. You can have a whole civilization just from one person, from one billionaire, right? How many billionaires are there? So what this will do is it'll allow us to transition without dismantling the current system. Because here's the problem: if you let's say that you had a portal, and let's say you could teleport every elite to an island in the middle of nowhere at once. So they would be removed from the system and living on a luxury island, having pedicures and drinking martinis and going to the jacuzzi all day. So then the economy would just be in shambles, because you need to replace that with something else. Because, I mean, some of these elite are, I mean, you have to have some agent of change, which is smooth and a transition. And that's the flaw of every revolution. Every revolution throughout history, including the Bolshevik Revolution, eventually it leads to the same crap. No matter, you need something like in a Venn diagram that fits together. You needed things to fit. And my point is, I don't know what that is, but we can use AI to determine what algorithm that is. Where does capital need to be allocated today? Is it in housing? What are the needs of society? Not the wants, the needs. Do we have water shortages in California? Do we have houses burning to the ground because the fire systems were not so good? What are the problems where there are needs? Then we will go there with our investment capital. We'll start businesses. And these VC guys, I mean, they can solve any problem. They're problem solvers. They're just like machines. And so I think this is the model forward, the way forward. And that's what this article is about. Building a fair system. This is, I think, a realistic model to disclosure, because I don't see how we could, I mean, let's say that we have med beds tomorrow. There are millions of med beds. Anybody can just go to the VA and get a med bed, let's say. No one would ever go to the doctor. So would that be disruptive? How many people have neighbors who are doctors who, I mean, doctors would be unemployed overnight. And so would the pharmaceuticals industry. So it's like with Doge. You have 12 cents on every dollar in Doge they found actually went to a good cause. But how do you know which is which? And that's the problem. So you need to have, I mean, the smash the whole thing and break it up approach, for the whole system, it would be bad. It would create more problems than it would benefit any. Now, what's great about this approach, it's decentralized, and it doesn't require, it's something that if 100 other people did this and implemented it, it would be enough to change the whole planet. Like, probably even less. Because one person does it. It's not about it's not about who gets the race of asteroid mining and becomes the world's first trillionaire. It's who's the first to create a model like this based on intelligence that creates value for the whole civilization. And here's the catch. When you give, you get. So even though you're going to be basically giving your value or your money away to other people through investment mostly, it will come back to you. I don't want to say tenfold, but it'll come back to you just like a river, like a dam that just broke. It'll just fly over you. You'll be just overwhelmed. So at the end of the day, you'll have more money. Now I can't prove that because it's never happened before, but it's not hard to think about how this might work. Because the monopolies, what they're doing is they want to control everything. So they keep the capital and they control. They have the vaccines, they have the cure, and you need to pay through the nose to get that cure. So with the decentralized distributed approach, it's kind of the opposite. It's like, well, I'm going to plant 1 million trees instead of let's say a tree is $50. So let's go back to this this chart here. 32 million trees. So you could plant with $32 million 658,000 trees. It's a lot of trees, and those trees are going to bear fruit. Some of them are going to die, but that's a lot of trees. And this is just like one example. You can see how this can grow. Think about this. Almost everyone in America is part of a homeowners association. How much money do HOAs spend on useless shrubs and bushes that really don't look nice at the end of the day? I've had pear, plum, most fruit trees are flowering fruit trees, but we could, if people want nice looking trees, let's get trees that are fruiting and flowering instead of spending billions of dollars on these shrubs. Why don't they do that? Because the monopolies control everything. So this is the opposite of control. This is not communism. It's not welfare. This is another catch to this. I mean, this is like another trap. Socialism doesn't work. Communism doesn't work. The problem with socialism is, like Dr. Tony Blanton taught me when I was in Pinecrest, it's the diminishing cake pan theory. You've got, even if robots are doing all the work, if people are becoming lazy and not doing anything, and they're just collecting checks and eating from my trees, over time they're going to have more kids, and there's going to be a strain on the few producers. There's going to be a small amount of producers, and finally what's going to happen, it's like Atlas Shrugged, those producers are going to be just broken, and they're going to leave. And then what are you going to do? Then there's nothing. Then you don't have any shoes, no manufacturing, no nothing. So socialism doesn't work. And we have to think outside of the box, really, because the people who created the framework for control are really geniuses, because they always get us trapped in this Hegelian dialectic, which is Coke versus Pepsi, capitalism versus communism. Capitalism and communism are equally toxic in the way that we do it. Because you can't, if you really want a capitalist society, you shouldn't have so much regulations. It should be more like the Wild West. Like let free markets kind of decide. We don't have that. We have controlled capitalism. Well, what's that? That's fascism. It's a monopoly. You have a cartel of billionaires that make regulations that favor them. You can only buy oil from the oil trust or whatever. And at the same time, there's the Sherman Antitrust Act that says it's illegal to have a monopoly. Yeah, right. So this is the solution. So going back to current events, this was an article on our blog, Global Intel Hub, and then we did another one on Elon. That this is exactly how they divide and conquer society. In other words, they jumped on this and like Elon is on drugs, and it all happened right after this information came out that a deal was struck. So I would say that both these narratives are true. I think a deal was struck. It's very logical. You've got two huge organizations. The Galactic Federation doesn't. I mean, they may not. The elites don't look at this as bad. They look at it like they're helping people. So it's all the black stuff that was happening, that's clearly black. But then you've got this whole gray zone, like the pharmaceuticals, the oil industry. Obviously, free energy is better, but the oil people are going to say that it creates jobs, it creates markets, it's the infrastructure we have, and we need to just ride it out and build something in parallel. And both arguments are kind of, that makes sense. What should be happening is the oil companies should be themselves getting into free energy, but of course they're not going to do that, because it's like with the case with Tesla. It's like you can't control it. They control the oil because there's limited resources, and they own all the real estate, and they own the refineries, which are expensive. But what if there was something going on in line with what I'm saying, that if you could empower individual people to create their own parallel economies, and there's someone doing this with Gab, Andrew Torba. He's doing a great job. He's created this whole parallel economy with Gab, and these people will. It's it's like conceptually, it's like the Facebook marketplace, but the difference is it's decentralized and it's like real people connecting. There's no bots on Gab. There's no spam. I mean, a little bit, but nothing like Facebook. Facebook is just a disaster. There's censorship. So there are parallel economies. That's what we need to create, is a parallel economy. I mean, does this guy
the everyday astronaut
look like he's on drugs?
This is you see, we're just the ablative, right? So you'd have to you'd lose out on reusability because of the lost tile, right, and the ablative. But you have, but at least it's intact. Yeah. And
you recover it, refurbish it, and get it back out on the.
Not on drugs. That's fake news. So. So I think, in conclusion, I think the good guys are out there and they are helping us, but the good guys are not going to help us overcome the monopoly state capitalism system that we have. Because that would be interference. That would be against cosmic law. They have to help people create our own system, just like with the reverse engineering. Like, they are very careful to I mean, maybe the Roswell crash was actually an engineered crash, because I always thought that was weird. Like, how these UFOs are so advanced, how can they crash? You know, maybe the crashes were a transfer of technology that we could have our hands on it and reverse engineer it. That's what we have to do with the system. We have to reverse engineer it. We have to build our own system. The ETs are not going to give us a quantum financial system like a gift. They can't do that. It would violate the free will and the various cosmic laws of interference with savage civilizations, right? So that's what I think. And I wish, some friends on X have said this, like, I wish we could avoid the drama and there's been a lot of just conflict inside the community and outside. But I think that's all part of the process. So I say to people, just don't sweat it. And don't listen to the noise. Just focus on whatever you're doing. Best answer I heard, people might not agree with it because it sounds so just ridiculous. Someone asked at the GC conference, what can I do, like an individual person, to help push forward disclosure? Like, is there a job or task I can do? And Jerry Wills said, be happy. Do what makes you happy, because that will ultimately help yourself to achieve your own self-actualization, and then that'll help society. And at first I thought it was kind of a joke, but then I thought about it. It's really wise, because what I'm doing this venture capital business. Other people are doing other things. There's some people out there doing amazing things. And everyone's doing something amazing. You know, look at Dr. Michael Salla. I mean, he's identified so many interesting witnesses that are, and some of these guys are working on really interesting projects. Like, there was this guy, Brad Johnson, who's working on this. He's recreating ancient technologies or ancient he's using a codex from ancient systems and putting it into AI. It's amazing what people are doing. So I think if you multiply that by the thousands, and then just thousands, it's unstoppable. And I think that's where this passion comes from, this nothing can stop what's coming. Because no one can stop millions of people working on independent projects. If you have a revolution, a counter-revolution, it can be stopped because they can target you. But they can't stop a widely distributed group who's not a group, who's the opposite of a federation. Federation is a target, whether it's the United States or the European Union, the Galactic Federation of Worlds. You know who to kind of create a counter-narrative. With individual people, millions of people kind of working on their own thing, just being happy, if you will, like Jerry Will said, it's unstoppable. So I think there's a lot of hope, and I think this is all positive because it's going to, I don't want to say trigger people, but it's going to activate, it's going to cause people to do things which are going to ultimately result in a better society. And it's not going to be so obvious for now, but I think this is all part of a growing up process that we have to be realistic, like about the war thing. We don't think that just because Trump is the president that war is going to stop. The war business is a really tricky thing because the guys with the guns are bullies. So they can shoot you in the leg and then say, what are you going to do? That's what I thought. And then keep shooting you in the leg. And then shoot a child or do something. You know? They're going to just keep bullying you until you say, finally, I'm going to, okay, fine, I'll fight back. And then you shoot back, and then you're in the war. And then you're no better than they are. So it's not like you can just, it's not like you can just turn it off. There's not like a switch. So I think this is all good. And I think it's great advice. A lot of people are saying that the way to connect outside is inside, and we should all work on ourselves and our inner work and meditate and read. I read a lot. I think reading books is something that really is fallen by the wayside, and that's a good way to just have a brain break and look at information in a peaceful way. You know, books are not social media. Even if you filter your social media, it's very intense, and there's always something going on. I mean, even if it's a quiet weekend, there's, someone's hit by a bus or this is going on. It's all just, if you read a book, it's intense, but in a different way. I read that when you're reading, your mind is in a meditative state. It's almost like a type of meditating compared to just reading on the screen. I get physical books. I've got physical books in every room in my house, and I always sometimes carry one with me. So I think this is positive, but we have a lot of work to do, so we should all get to work. And as far as what your job is, I think everyone knows what their job is. It's something that you're good at. It's the talent that makes you. It's like, what's the difference between a vocation and an occupation? Occupation is your job where you clock in, you punch in, punch out. A vocation is what you do because you're just born to do that. So I think after this turmoil, I think it's going to be all smooth sailing, but there wouldn't be sweet without the sour. So if we didn't suffer through this fight, socially, psychologically, and everything else, and for some people physically, then we wouldn't appreciate what it's like at the end. It's like any runner knows when you're running, when you have that water after you stop, there's nothing better than that. I mean, you've never felt like relief like that. And I think that's what we'll feel. So still some sticky things to go through, but that's my take on what's going on. So let's get to work. Let's be positive. Put on your negative energy shield so that don't let the negativity affect you, because it's all noise. There's nothing worse than fear mongering. It's not real. It's just fear. It's a frequency to get people to react and be in that low state, fear. It's nothing to fear. Have a great day. Thank you for watching. And as you know, or maybe you don't know, this channel is widely shadow banned, so please share our website, globalintelhub.com, this video, and like it. If you want to get involved, you want to do an interview or anything, it's pretty easy to reach out to us, and we can do a collaborative article or a podcast together, and you can tell us about your project, and we'll go from there. So wish everyone the best. Have a great day.